In August 2019, inside a concrete cell in Manhattan, one of the most connected men in the world was found dead. No cameras, sleeping guards, a broken chain of custody. The official story was short. The public reaction was not. Because Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just another criminal defendant. He was a man who had dined with presidents, travelled with royalty, donated to scientists, met with billionaires. And when he died, he took something with him. Or did he? Tonight, we're breaking down 8 myths about Jeffrey Epstein that millions still believe. Some of them protect powerful people, others protect comforting narratives. But the truth is colder than conspiracy, and far more disturbing. Myth: everyone on Epstein's jet was part of the crimes. The private plane became a symbol, nicknamed the Lolita Express. It has been cited in countless videos, threads, and documentaries. Names appeared in flight logs, famous names, including figures like Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew. Online logic became simple. If they flew with him, they were involved. But flight logs are not indictments. They prove proximity, not participation. Some passengers flew once, others several times. Some were never charged, some denied wrongdoing. In Prince Andrew's case, a civil lawsuit was later settled without an admission of guilt. And here's the uncomfortable reality. In elite circles, access is currency. Epstein understood that. Being photographed with power gave him protection, or at least the appearance of it. The myth is that every name equals a crime. The darker truth? We don't fully know what happened on every trip. An absence of proof is not proof of absence, but it's also not proof of guilt. And that ambiguity is where suspicion thrives. But to understand how he reached that level of access, we need to ask a more dangerous question. Myth: he was just a wealthy financier. That word, financier, sounds legitimate, respectable, safe. But public records about how Epstein accumulated his wealth remain strangely thin. He briefly worked at Bear Stearns. Later, he claimed to manage money for ultra-high net worth individuals, yet confirmed clients were few. There are no clear public trading records that explain a multi-hundred-million-dollar empire, so speculation filled the void. Blackmail, intelligence ties, hidden leverage over powerful men. No verified court evidence has proven espionage or systemic blackmail operations. But what is documented is this. Epstein cultivated relationships deliberately. Scientists, politicians, business leaders. He donated to universities, hosted conferences, invited Nobel laureates to private gatherings. He didn't just want wealth, he wanted insulation. And insulation in elite society comes from proximity to power. The myth is that he was just rich. The truth: his greatest asset may not have been money, it may have been access, and access changes how justice works. Which brings us to 2008. Myth: he already paid for his crimes. In 2008, Epstein faced federal investigation in Florida. The potential charges were serious. Instead, he secured a controversial plea deal. He pleaded guilty to state charges, served about 13 months. Much of it on work release, allowed to leave jail during the day. The agreement shielded potential co-conspirators from federal prosecution. Years later, that deal was ruled to have violated victims' rights. The US attorney involved at the time, Alexander Acosta, would later say he had been told Epstein belonged to intelligence. That claim has never been substantiated. What is documented? A system that bent, a prosecution that shrank, a sentence many considered extraordinarily light. For the victims, 2008 wasn't justice. It was survival of a powerful defendant, and the message it sent was chilling. Power buys time. Sometimes it buys silence, but eventually silence breaks, and in 2019 it did. Myth: Ghislaine Maxwell was just his assistant. Behind Epstein stood another name, Ghislaine Maxwell, socialite, heiress. daughter of media tycoon Robert Maxwell. For years, she moved through elite spaces effortlessly. At trial, prosecutors argued she was not peripheral, but central. She was convicted in federal court in 2021 on trafficking-related charges and later sentenced to 20 years. Testimony described recruitment, grooming, normalization of abuse. This was not internet rumor. This was courtroom evidence. Yet online narratives swing wildly. Some portray her as the mastermind, others as the fool person. The documented reality is narrower and still damning. She was convicted for her role in trafficking minors connected to Epstein. But the deeper question lingers. Was the operation limited to just 2 people? Or were there others who escaped legal scrutiny? And if so, why? Myth? There is a secret complete client list. Few phrases generate more online heat than the list. The belief. Somewhere exists a definitive document naming every powerful individual involved in criminal acts. Over time, court documents have been unsealed. Names have appeared, associates, staff, accusers, witnesses, public figures. But being mentioned in a court filing is not equivalent to being charged. No official court proceeding has presented a single, verified client list proving widespread criminal participation. Yet the narrative persists, because psychologically a list is satisfying. It gives chaos structure. It gives outrage direction. But investigations are rarely that clean, and if there were such a list, fully verified, legally airtight, its absence from prosecution would raise even more explosive questions. Instead, what we have is partial transparency, and partial transparency breeds permanent suspicion, which leads to the most explosive myth of all. Myth? His murder has been proven. On August 10th, 2019, Epstein was found dead in the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. The official ruling, suicide by hanging. Then, Attorney General William Barr publicly stated that evidence supported that conclusion. But the details were catastrophic. Security cameras malfunctioned. Guards reportedly fell asleep. Records were falsified. Epstein had previously been placed on suicide watch, and then removed. 2 correctional officers were later charged in connection with record falsification. The convergence of incompetence was staggering, and for many statistically unbelievable. There is no publicly released forensic determination of homicide, but the failure chain was real. And in high-profile cases involving powerful connections, institutional failure feels like something darker. The myth is that murder has been proven. It hasn't. The fear is that the truth may never be provable either way, and in that vacuum, distrust metastasizes. But here's another uncomfortable myth. Myth: all-powerful associates knew. Photographs show Epstein with figures like Donald Trump in the 1990s. Records show meetings with Bill Gates years after Epstein's 2008 conviction. Meetings Gates later called a mistake. Elite networks overlap constantly. Galas, conferences, fundraisers, private dinners. The assumption many make is simple. If they were near him, they must have known. But knowledge is difficult to prove, and in elite social circles, reputation can mask reality. History shows that predators often construct credibility shields. Epstein surrounded himself with Nobel laureates, philanthropists, and political figures. He wasn't hiding in shadows. He was standing in chandeliers. The myth is universal awareness. The truth? We don't know who knew what and when, but we do know that proximity gave him legitimacy, and legitimacy delayed scrutiny. Which brings us to the final myth. Myth. The story is over. Epstein is dead. Maxwell is imprisoned. Headlines moved on. But the structural questions remain. How did a previously convicted offender regain access to elite institutions? Why did warning signs fail repeatedly? Why were early allegations minimized? Civil cases continue. Journalists continue probing financial networks and institutional responses. The Epstein case is no longer just about an individual predator. It is about systems, about how power shields itself, about how institutions respond, or fail to respond when confronted with wealth and influence. The story feels unfinished because in many ways it is, not legally, but structurally, and that's more unsettling. The Epstein case sits at a dangerous crossroads: crime, power, secrecy, and public distrust. Conspiracies flourish where transparency collapses. But separating myth from fact is not about protecting elites, it's about protecting truth. Because if every unanswered question becomes proof of something darker, we stop demanding real evidence and real accountability. Epstein's confirmed crimes were horrific. His connections were real. His death was official and deeply controversial. But the line between documented fact and viral fiction matters, because in cases involving real victims, the truth must be stronger than the noise, and sometimes the most disturbing reality isn't a hidden cabal, it's a system that failed in plain sight.